Today, I'm going to try to draw this street in the old town of Tallinn, Estonia. But before I get into it, I'd like to do a sort of short introduction for anyone who might be new to the channel. I have realized that I rarely do that, so I should probably throw it in every once in a while. So, I'm Zach. I travel full time, usually moving from place to place every few weeks. And in the midst of that, I'm trying to learn how to draw. I've dabbled with it throughout my life, but never for long enough to make an impact. I've always wanted to be able to sit down and draw whenever I see, not relying on photographs to copy, but the real thing, like the real world. And thanks to my sort of unorthodox lifestyle, that means I can reference a broad variety of subjects and scenes. And I felt like that process would make for an interesting and hopefully entertaining viewing experience. As of this recording, I'm about 10 weeks into this learning process, and I'd encourage you to go back to the earlier videos for the sake of comparison. I think I've come a long way in various aspects, but this is still just the beginning, and it certainly feels that way. I still have a very long way to go, more to learn than I can imagine, I'm sure. So if you're intrigued by the concept and you'd like to watch this learning process occur, consider subscribing to the channel. That would be awesome. I'd love to have you. Right, so now that we're all up to speed, let's talk about today's drawing, starting off quickly with this reference. If it looks familiar, like I just did something similar, good eye. While not the same street, this one does resemble the street I drew a week or so ago, which is actually just a stone's throw away. It's pretty much right around the corner. Is that why I chose it? No. But I will say that having done that other one, I feel that the process for this one came a lot easier to me. As opposed to all that stuff I said yesterday about skills rapidly slipping away, and if you missed that one, go check it out. It doesn't seem to be the case here. On some level, I guess I saw this reference and felt a bit more confident than I would have been had I not drawn that other one, but whatever. Ultimately, I chose it because it's just one of many beautiful spots in this town, and there's really not much more to it than that. Anyway, as you'll notice, I have sped up the drawing video, and that's simply because I sat here for an eternity. It was well over 20 minutes, which is honestly daunting as it concerns the voiceover, but also I don't expect everyone to sit down every day and spend that much time watching these. So actually consider it a favor. Seriously though, my drawings have enlarged recently, in time, that is. And it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, wondering why, and I've reached two possible conclusions, both of which are probably true. The first is that maybe as I'm getting a little bit better, my confidence is commensurately increasing with my openness to reference selection. I see a scene that looks possible now that wouldn't have been before, and it comes with new challenges that take more time to manage. The second, following the same presupposition that I'm getting better, which I hope is the case, is that I'm noticing and therefore attempting to draw additional detail that I would have previously missed and or failed to draw. So in today's drawing, had I been so bold to attempt it 2 months ago, impossible, almost all of the small details would have been ignored in favor of the overall composition and perspective, which inherently takes a lot less time than drawing each and every one of these godforsaken windows. I'm sure there are more reasons. Maybe I'm feeling less nervous, so I kind of like relax into it. Maybe in the back of my head, I know that I can manipulate the speed if necessary. Or maybe it's something I'm not thinking about at all, which is why I'd love to hear what you think about this. Along with why I might be taking longer, also let me know whether it's the longer or shorter videos you prefer to watch. I think knowing that would be helpful and maybe instructive. So let me know in the comments. Okay, wow. I've spent a lot of time talking about everything but the drawing itself, so let's dive into that. As you can see, I started off with the lines that make up the road, And candidly, I have no idea if that's a good or bad way to start something like this, but it made sense in my head. I roughly figured out where the road and more specifically, these sidewalks would terminate on the paper. So the left side was directly in front of me, meaning it would end right in the middle. And the right side, I don't remember. I definitely improvised a lot of this, and that's actually something I'd like to get back to in a minute. Anyway, and then I found my vanishing point, which I meant to place lower than I did. I actually envisioned placing it directly on the intersection of the bottom left third, but as is often the case, I got lost in it, but not a big deal. So once I had those rough points, I could eyeball the shape of the road itself and then start to place some vertical lines for certain buildings. This is confusing for me, the vertical stuff. I never know how to judge the height of the buildings, and I'm really curious to know if there's like one perfect way that's ideally simple to memorize and doesn't require a ruler. But yeah, I make them as tall as I felt they should be, and that was that. Thankfully, at this point, everything else can be measured against each new thing that I draw. So solving the puzzle becomes like exponentially easier. The first ones are by far the most difficult to visualize, but once I commit to something, I can go faster and faster because everything relies on everything else, if that makes sense. This stage of the drawing, and any other drawing like it, feels the most flimsy. Granted, having the perspective figured out for the most part gives me a lot of freedom, but I'm still relying a lot on my observation skills and my ability to keep track of what goes where. For example, and I really hope you can follow along, I hope I can say all this right. Uh, the tops of these buildings are angled toward me, like the roof, whereas the facades, the front of the buildings, are facing the left. So as I go along, it's incredibly easy to mistake one plane for another and draw in new incorrect lines. Now, if I don't remember that I'm drawing, let's say, the top of the front of one of these buildings on the right, so like it would be facing left, and I confuse it for its roof, meaning the side, not the front, my lines would angle slightly downward to the right, as you can see on this round red rooftop, instead of angling aggressively downward to the left, to the vanishing point, as you can see on all of the windows and overhangs. So yes, I'm glad that I'm building up the scene more and more to better anchor myself, but with each new line, I'm also risking completely altering the perspective, which would make things look really wrong really quickly. Lucky for me, I don't think I made any of those blatant mistakes here, which felt really good, as even in the similar drawing from about a week ago, I did make such mistakes, at least once. It wasn't obvious enough to make a huge difference because it was a much less significant part of the scene, but it was still there and I still saw it, and it did drive me a little crazy. Anyway, like I said, I wanted to touch on improvisation and particularly how rampant it was for me today. You'll no doubt notice that I've taken numerous liberties here, and that's largely on purpose. At a certain point, facing so much detail, there comes a moment where it just makes more sense for me to extrapolate from imagination rather than continue observing every last bit of detail. All of these windows have their own unique qualities. The lights, the pipes, the cobblestones, they're all precisely individual. It's practically infinite. And if I already feel like I'm taking too long, just imagine me sitting here noticing everything and drawing it accordingly. No, I would die. My eyes would melt. So at a certain point, it makes a lot more sense for me to build off of the foundational stuff that I've already noticed and drawn. Not only does this save me time, and don't forget about my poor eyes, but it allows me some creative latitude to play with shapes and test my understanding of the perspective. Maybe this area looks empty, so I'll add a window. Maybe that area looks too cramped, so I'll leave some things out. I get to make of this whole thing what I will. And that actually takes away a lot of pressure to get everything perfectly correct. And also, I'd say that it helps me just get better overall because I can push the boundaries and I can do so rapidly. Checking in with the reference is an important part of this. I've realized that. But there's a difference between refreshing my general understanding and staring up at every individual line. It gets exhausting. It doesn't always make sense for the drawing. And worst of all, it's not all that fun. So I've been trying to do more and more of this when and where I can. And I'm finding it really exciting. It's not always the right move. Sometimes I need to be, particularly observant. But when I see an opportunity to do a little bit of that imaginative extrapolation, I take it. So that's a lot of what's going on here. I'm just having fun with it, dropping in a few extra details where I see fit, altering shapes as necessary. And all in all, I think it really works for this one. As we reach the end, in no particular order, I want to throw in a few final little things that I've noticed, kind of rapid fire. So, one, I feel like I'm sketching a lot of things out, like I'm using lighter lines like I used to talk about often, but I think now it's to my benefit. I'm still approaching things with confidence, which is what I always wanted. So even though I'm not boldly committing to things right away, that is intentional. And I think it's helped me visualize things and avoid jumping the shark. Two, while I still find it difficult to see the illusion of depth that I'm creating by making these darker marks or shading or whatever, I'm really glad to see how quick I've been able to employ them. Today was probably the first time for a split second I could see the effect as I was drawing it. By the end, I can see what those darker marks are doing and what they're implying, but it's usually not possible for me to see in real time. I'm usually just trusting my eyes, but today I got a glimpse into it in a way I haven't yet, and that was amazing. As long as it's not a sign of shifting over from my eyes to my brain, I'd like to see that increase. I was like seeing into another realm. I loved it. And then three, while the duration of many of these recent drawings have been stretched, it feels like I'm taking another significant step forward in progress, yesterday notwithstanding. I've recently tried to compare newer drawings with similar older ones, like right next to each other, and the difference is pretty staggering. I'm always saying that I have a long, long way to go. I even said it in this video, and that is true, but I also have to remember where I came from. I have made a lot of progress, and it's easy to forget sometimes, but it's important that I recognize it to remind myself of the legitimacy of the process. It works. It takes time, but it works. Awesome, we did it. So the first thing I notice, what stands out to me the most is the perspective. Sure, I had a lot of fun with the details, like I said, but I think I managed the perspective pretty well here. Problem-wise, I still need to wade deeper into shading. It will become a priority soon, I can feel it. And also certain shapes aren't amazing. The tower is weird. But what do you think? How does this compare to the other one? Let me know. And if you like this video, please go ahead and like it. And if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. That would be great. Anyway, I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.